Okay, Stalkers, I am back after the screening of Philip Kaufman's 1979 classic, The Wanderers, at the Film Forum. That joint back there. And we actually were treated to a Q&A post-screening with the author of the source novel that the movie's based on, Richard Price, one of my favorite writers, as I was saying before. And he did not disappoint. He talked for a good 45, 50 minutes, almost an hour. He actually got on stage with a Wanderers jacket that he claimed. He actually got a replica jacket from the set that he lost, and he had to go on eBay to buy this one. He was accompanied by about 10 of the people in the audience who brought their Wanderers jackets, so there was a lot more love for this movie out there than I remembered or maybe realized. The first impression I think I have on watching it again for the first time again, since I was, but a wee lad, is how adult the movie was. I mean, it is a movie that you should see. It's one of those rites of passage films, I think, that when you're like 15 or 16 years old, it's on your list. It's especially as it came. I was coming around 12, 13, 14 years old when there was kind of there was a nostalgia vibe going on that American Graffiti kicked off, but then a subgenre of that, like 50s, 60s, nostalgia vibe was the gang movie that represented by Lords of Flatbush, and later on this film. And I guess Escape from New York kind of falls in there too. The Warriors, like they're all sort of like gang pictures, but the Warriors was near dystopian future, and Escape from New York was the nearer, further dystopian future. But they were all sort of like of that gang subgenre. They were like, it was in the late 70s, early 80s. But this is a gang film, but also harkens back more to the nostalgia flick of like what Lords of Flatbush is trying to pull off, and what Lucas did pull off with American Graffiti. It also shares with American Graffiti. Graffiti was the first movie to really spend on the soundtrack. Before that, it was, songs by the original artists, and it was, all recorded by a band called The Original Artists. They didn't have the actual original artists. With Graffiti, they spent the money on the soundtrack to get the original songs. Martin Scorsese did the same thing in the same year with Mean Streets, both in 1973. And that set the precedent that film budgets after that incorporated for original music. Like, you just had the original songs on there. And The Wanderers is a great throwback soundtrack. It's got the Shirelles and Dion and Benny King. It's very representative of its era, but also became sort of a sampler in the late 70s for, 50s, late 50s, early 60s, soul, R&B, doo-wop, all which, doo-wop originated in the Bronx, and this movie set in the Bronx, and I am from the Bronx, so I always take a little bit of, personal, I have a little bit of a personal connection to this movie, because it was set just like 8 years before I was born, not too far away from where I lived in the Bronx. And Richard Price is from the Bronx as well. He's from Co-op City, if I remember correctly. He's one of my favorite writers. He's one of my favorite New York writers too. He's endlessly creative, but he also manages to capture a particular flavor of the city that I've always connected to. So yeah, everything kind of conspired. That capturing of that time and place, that essential Bronx, New York City, like early 60s vibe from the pen of Richard Price is adapted by Philip Kaufman and his wife Rose. Married with the soundtrack, with a cast of then unknown actors, including Ken Wall and Karen Allen and Linda Mance, who I've now seen in 2 films in 4 days. I didn't realize how many movies I'd seen her in. She's a really fascinating character. I got to do more research on her. It's kind of amazing that she never had more of a career. She kind of was like, as I was explaining over the weekend, like if Jackie Earle Haley from the Bad News Bears had a baby with Tatum O'Neal from the Bad News Bears, I think Linda Mance would have been the result. The glorious result. It's kind of a shame she didn't have a longer career, but I mean, she's really indelible in these films. Out of the Blue was Friday Antonetta saw The Wanderers, and of course her biggest claim to fame, I guess, is being one of the stars of Terrence Malick's Days of Heaven. She's ostensibly the star of the film. But anyway, the other takeaways I got this time is I forgot how it is sort of, it's not cookie cutter, but it is of the genre of a youthful, nostalgic, coming of age movie. But there's a couple of sequences in the film, whenever they wander into Ducky Boy territory, it's definitely, he borrows the tropes of horror movies, and he borrows them really well. It's almost as if Val Lewton has Jacques Tourneur direct some of these sequences, but it doesn't break the movie, like it doesn't take it out of the film, but it's definitely a demarcation point where it's not a early 60s kind of love letter to growing up young in the Bronx, and now becomes like a horror film for those sequences. And the gang fight during the football game at the end of the movie, the climax of the film, there's a lot more brutal than I remembered. It's almost like it's shot like it's a battle sequence, like it's a war film almost at that point. It reminded me, because I recently saw the restoration of Orson Welles' Chimes at Midnight, and there's a famous battle sequence in that movie that he shot for almost no money, and this was shot for almost no money too. And it kind of reminded me, not just in creativity, but in brutality, like what they, and the use of editing too, like very short takes, very, very visceral action, But yeah, it's really, and coming out of, again, in the 70s, we were just coming out of the Vietnam War, so I guess like war had to be a part of every movie that you were making in one way or another, even if it was like a hidden trope somehow, or if it was sort of like in your face. And it's not quite in your face in this movie, but I mean, it's a kind of a joyless fight at the end of the film. It's not like we win or, the bad guy loses. It's just like, you see guys getting carried off the football field / battlefield. It's like, it's a war sequence. But it holds up, and again, I say it might just be Philip Kaufman's most perfect film. Maybe not his best. People love his remake of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. I haven't seen that since I was a kid. I remember hating it when I was a kid, so everyone's telling me I gotta revisit that film, so maybe I will now. Me personally, The Right Stuff, I think, is the finest thing that he ever committed to celluloid, but The Warriors, a lot of people also think that The Right Stuff is a little too long, it gets boring at times. I don't feel that way, but if I was going to introduce somebody to the work of Philip Kaufman, I would start with The Wanderers. I say start here, because it's kind of the perfect distillation of a storytelling style, and it's just a neat little 2 hours of film. It's just a perfect little story. Great actors. It's really a joy, and I'm glad it holds up after all this time, and hopefully new audiences are going to be finding it. And yeah, it was great. It was a packed house tonight at the Film Forum. This will be showing again, I think, in a week or 2 weeks. Check the calendar at nitratesstock.net. Because Philip Kaufman himself is going to be appearing post-screening for a live Q&A via Skype. And Bruce Goldstein, who is the senior repertory film curator at the program at the Film Forum, he's going to be conducting the Q&A. So that's on the slate to look forward to. I'm done for the night. I just saw a great movie. I've had it for now, but I will be back in the middle of the week. They're going to be starting the Busby Berkeley series on Wednesday, so I will be here. And if I can talk my good friend Will McKinley into appearing on this iPhone too, maybe you'll see both of our smiling mugs. Anyway, I'm going to sign off for tonight. This is Joseph Walsh. Please follow me on NitrateStock at NitrateStock.net. Follow me on Facebook, Twitter, on the NitrateStock TV account, on YouTube, as I'm figuring out the bugs as I go along. But I'm not quitting. Neither should you. So anyway, signing off for now, and as always, as I like to say, stick with me, Stockers.